right. Yeah, hi everyone, and yeah, it's good to see everyone. I'm just getting over a cough, so if I have a coughing fit, just bear with me, and I'll try and mute it if that happens. Um, yeah, so I just want to well, the main thing is I'd really love to check in and just see what your experiences were, and just a follow-up from any insights or questions that may have arisen. A number of people have reached out and shared already, so some of those people aren't here today. So there's a few things I'd like to maybe mention that they were things that came up repeatedly. So maybe I'll just talk about what was shared, and I think that'll get the ball rolling, and there'll probably be some resonance with everyone's experience here. So I guess I kind of shared it in the email that I sent. Just really talking about how the question came up for a number of people after this, or even during, around prompting, and how do we know when the prompt is coming from the mind? How do we know when it's an authentic prompt? And sometimes people will question themselves, and yeah, to me that's not a bad thing. It's the there's kind of two ends of the spectrum. Like, the conditioned self can always be prompting and not question it at all, and just be like hammering prompts. And then on the other end of the spectrum, there's this doubt, within the self structure. It's like, am I, is this authentic? Is this real? And all of that, the whole continuum is the conditioned self. It's just the conditioned mind. So all of that, it's an amazing opportunity to see what's in play within our own self structure, and the questioning, and the thoughts, just generating thoughts, and the evaluating, whether it's evaluating a participant, or evaluating ourselves, or evaluating our own activity there. So when we're with the participants, for most of it, we're just listening. We're just getting a sense of each individual, and without analyzing, without evaluating, without judging. And then, this sort of impulse arises sometimes for the prompting, and it really is mysterious, and it's like it just comes online for some people, and it's usually born out of just this sense of being with them on their journey. We're just engaged with this journey that we've all gone through ourselves, disidentifying from this conditioned character. So somehow it's like just knowing the truth, that those pointers will just arise, and it comes from beyond our conditioning. It's not about following a formula. It's not about following any of those little prompt cues that I gave out. Excuse me. Yeah, although those, having those little tricks, of inserting the right question at the right time. There is a, it's like, sometimes beneficial to see those things, and how it's been done in the past, but it's always really coming from a place that's new and direct in the moment. So yeah, so that's, it's really, I think it's just, when we see these questions coming up, or these doubts, or even certainties. If the mind feels certain as well, it's just as bad as doubt. It's like that we enter into this don't know mind, or this space of just being present, just listening without evaluating. And yeah, so it's just the more we know who we are, the more we know who the participants are, and we sort of see past that conditioned self, and we can sort of point past whatever phenomena is coming up within the self structure. Um, yeah, so it's really not separate from our own path and our own development. And one of the things that came up for a number of people is around, really being clear whether a particular participant had an awakening. So many people reached out and mentioned, so and so had an awakening, and sometimes we would and check in, and it wasn't clear. Sometimes, there's an excitement to say, yeah, this person had an awakening, and the question came up, like, do we actually confirm to someone if they had an awakening? And this is where it gets very tricky. Um, for me, I don't find that it's necessary to directly say to someone, you had an awakening, because it's dangerous, actually. It can kind of activate the ego. Um, if you even the way we word it sometimes can trigger an egoic response. If we say, you had an awakening, you know, that phrase is already in the past. Um, so I find it's, if we're really questioning someone, really getting them grounded into um, the truth of who they are, things like saying, "Are you awake here and now?" Do you know who you are here and now? Um, or saying, "What's happening in the mind and body?" Does any of that mind-body phenomena have anything to do with you? And those types of questions, and just exploring and grounding them in the truth, um, and really getting people to see that mind tendency to believe the next thought. Um, so yeah, so that, did you have an awakening? It's a, I don't usually go there, because it is a paradox. Like, if you examine it or really feel into it, if you say, you know, you had an awakening, who are we referring to in that statement? Obviously it's not the character, and awareness just is. So it doesn't need that affirmation. Um, that one that was always there. Um, it's there is no one that awakens. It's just awareness recognizes itself that it's always been there. So um, yeah. So I generally just don't tell people, and it just becomes clear. And sometimes I'll at this retreat, like, there were a number of times where I'll say things like, are you the one that your mind was looking for? And if they say yes, yeah, it's just me, I'm the one, then it becomes very clear. Um, and there's really nothing to do at that point, other than just be with them, in that experience, and direct experience of the self, and it's a real amazing opportunity to see, to get them to see, when they're believing their thoughts, if any thought starts to come back in that space of direct experience, then we can start to, I think that's really the key thing, is to get people to the point where they recognize that habit pattern of the mind, and not believing those thoughts. And so sometimes they'll be in presence for for quite a while, so no thoughts will be coming up. But I find it's actually really productive when the mind does come back in. It's a huge opportunity to point it out to them and just say, okay, who's aware of that mind, and get them to recognize it, and it's usually accompanied by laughter, and realizing that oh yeah, like it got snagged again, even after this very beautiful clear experience. It's like the mind comes back. So just making that conscious is huge, and yeah, just helping people to get grounded from that space. And one of the things, sometimes we see people transform in front of us, and it can be very dramatic. People they're going from being exhausted to being in this space of laughing and smiling. They're in a good space. They might be saying things like "I'm awareness," but it doesn't necessarily mean they've had an awakening, actually. Even if they're saying, "I'm awareness," when that I thought truly vanishes or truly drops away, one of the real true hallmarks is there's a recognition that I have always been here. Like the true I has always been here. So we can say I'm awareness, but if we probe a little bit deeper, sometimes it becomes clear that there's still a concept there that's being held. There's still an I thought that is sort of owning that. It's like I am awareness. That's what I am, and there's a belief there rather than a direct experience. So yeah, so one of the hallmarks is just this recognition that I have always been here. It's absurd. It's like a cosmic joke almost. And the character that I was identified with for my life seems like a dream. That's often one of the reports, and I went through these in that the 8 signs of Kensho as well. There's usually a humbleness, and the mind is quiet. Yeah. So let me see if there's anything else I wanted to mention. I'm just gonna see, there was something else I wanted to mention. Oh yeah, one of the things. So yeah, quite often there's we see like a change in someone's energy. So there can be like a new energy arising. We see some new phenomena present itself. So sometimes someone will be smiling, or laughing, or they're sort of moving around. There's like this new element that surfaces, and it's tricky with the prompting at this point, because we want to allow that energy to unfold. We don't want to. Sometimes we'll say something like, who's smiling, or who's aware of that, and then the individual will be back, in the mind, looking for an answer, and it might actually shut down that that unfolding of that energy. So we really have to feel it out at that point. For some people, saying, who's smiling, who's laughing, who's breathing, that can bring the flip. It's like I am. So we always are speaking to that true self, where the true self can those words can come through. It's like I am, that true nature. Um, but it can go either way in that situation. Sometimes the mind will come back, and then that energy will drop again. And so if that happens, I find it's very helpful in those moments sometimes to point out what just happened to someone. So you could say, just a moment ago you were really lit up. Your energy was free. So what was happening there? What was going on? Was there was sort of a quietness in the mind. The mind wasn't searching for an answer in that moment. Um, and if you can get them to recognize that, and then they'll say something like, "Oh yeah, like yeah, I wasn't looking for an answer. I was just here, you know." But then you gave me the prompt, and then I was back searching in the mind again, and so if you can make that process fully conscious, sometimes just pointing out directly what is actually happening in real time, um, can get people to really, excuse me, see, this mechanism of, because that dropping the seeker, dropping the searching is what we want. Um, and sometimes it just happens, and there's not really a consciousness around the process itself. Yeah, so I think that's about it. There's a few things, I'll just leave it till the end, but there are some other questions around things that people have been exploring um, through the Charles Berner tradition. Some people have been connecting with other facilitators like Murray, or reading the Charles Berner manual, reading the Lawrence Noyes materials as well. And one of the things in that world, they use other prompts as well. So it's come from a few people asking about these different prompts that come onto our radar at certain points. Um, and I think I'll leave that to the end, but it's something we can talk about, and it's actually an important thing to address as well. Um, yeah, but I'd love to hear from you guys now. Is anybody? Yeah, Dominic.
Yeah, hi Dan. Hi
Hi.
everyone. Um, I sort of noticed um, over the course of the retreat and the dyads that there was a general shift in people. People tended to become uh, calmer, more relaxed. Um, the language started to change as people started to adopt the language of the character and the self structure, and started saying things like, there is a feeling rather than I am feeling, something like that.
Mhm.
So I noticed that change going on, but then it seemed like my impression was that people were sort of trying to manufacture an awakening, and so talking about, oh, I feel so calm. I feel so relaxed, and things like that.
Mhm.
And I don't think it was I don't think it's a conscious attempt to mislead, but I think people wanted it so badly,
Yeah.
and then the feeling of feeling different, feeling calmer, feeling more relaxed,
Yeah.
people would then start to interpret that as, oh, oh, that's my awakening. I've had an awakening. Um, And so what I found as a facilitator is, at the very beginning, I recognized that I was kind of looking for places to point, because I wanted to help, you want to help people in their awakening. But then I realized that was just my ego. You know, so I decided very early on that I wasn't going to point at all, but rather I was just going to, you know, correct people's technique if there was an obvious, you know, flaw in the technique, or else just remind people that there was only 2 minutes left or something like that, but really not pointing at all. Um, and then as you know, as we got towards the end of the retreat, I really wasn't, that's what I was doing, but I wasn't, I felt very uncertain about what was the difference between a sort of manufactured awakening that somebody, you know, was trying to create versus a true awakening. And so, um, that's where I kind of got stuck.
Mm, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I think like during the retreat, we talked a bit about this, where um, like the people, like the different stages that we come to during the self-inquiry. The participants come to these different stages, and one of the stages is where, it's like in shamatha meditation, the tranquility. We come to sort of the witness, where we're still, you're still in duality. There's still this sense of witness and what's being witnessed, but yet there's this sense of peace there. There's definitely, a lot of the anxiety and the suffering has dropped away. It's a very sort of quiet, peaceful place. And this is one of the stages where people will hang out, and it is often mistaken for, awakening. Like people will want to hang out there, thinking that this is it, or there's definitely a tangible benefit, that they've realized, but yet they're still using language that is dualistic. There's still talking, in a way where there's this separation, where there's a sense of me and then the phenomena that's arising. So usually, usually there isn't um, a dramatic sort of or clear um, aliveness coming through. It can be sort of like Charles Berner called it, no man's land. So it's kind of nice and quiet there and tranquil, but it isn't life itself coming through in that moment. It's not like a true awakening. And sometimes people they're good at manufacturing, especially if
Yeah.
they've really um, they've read a lot of stuff, and it's like they really want it, and it can be tricky. And I've had people at retreats, live retreats, I've gotten fooled, and then I see it later on. I'll go back and kind of correct it, or like make it more clear, or do the investigation that I didn't do in that moment. So yeah, it is very tricky. And um, often there is something energetic that, when we're just hanging out in that tranquil space, usually there's something like the core I thought, as Ramana talked about, the root of the I thought still has to give way. So there's like an energetic shift, or something from the unconscious sometimes will come up in that space. Sometimes it's surprising, some like out of the blue. Somebody will be, very tranquil and in this beautiful space, and then they'll start crying, or there'll be like a big release, or there'll be, sometimes it's just a gentle flip, and and usually I find like there's nothing we can really do about that. It's just part of the process. And usually, if people hang out in that long enough, there's sort of that chronic unsatisfactoriness of the mind will creep back in. And
Yeah.
that's when you can start to catch it, where when if people are in that space, you can say if they're saying things like, I feel complete, I'm blissful, but you're not quite buying it. You can say, are you satisfied with that? And if that keeps going on, eventually that that there's a doubt or there's a unsatisfactoriness or wanting something more will come to the surface, and these more subtle beliefs will come forward in that space.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. That's great.
Mhm. Thank you. Yeah, Michelle, are you there?
Yes. Hi, Dan. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just traveling, so there might be some background noise.
Okay.
So for me, I really appreciated the training ahead of time that we did. And in particular,
Oh, I think we're losing your audio, Michelle.
stages of
I think we're losing you, Michelle. Yeah.
and I just sort of kept.
Oh, she's gone. Okay. Um, yeah. Okay. Why don't we'll just continue on. So why don't we go to Paulo? Paulo. Hi, Paulo.
Hi everyone. Hi Dan.
Oh.
Uh, First, I have to say I was really surprised about the fact that this online retreat was so powerful. I could never imagine.
Mhm.
It was really, it blew my mind really because I couldn't expect to have such
Mhm.
huge results for myself and for the people around the sessions. And you know, the answer to my question is in the message you sent for the meeting today. I wanted to know something about how to understand when was the right moment to say something, when was the right moment. But you're right, it's only in the mind. Only the mind knows exactly, no, wants to know exactly
Yeah.
what to do and when to do it.
Yeah.
And the main things that I get in this session that I was there as a facilitator was the fact that sometimes it happened to me to have some energy movement inside my body. I was starting to tremble. And maybe that was the point where maybe I was so close to that energetic change between the two people making diets. Maybe we were all connected in that moments. I don't know, but I had this strong feeling sometimes. It happened to me two or three times during the diets, and I was very, very, I don't know, surprised really because it was really, really powerful as was my live session in November.
Mhm.
So I have to say it was really, really a wonderful experience, and the energy feeling was so beautiful.
Mhm.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I feel like there's nothing deeper than being in this facilitator role. I find for my own path, just I the clearings and clearing the mind and the energetic shifts and development. Yeah, it is surprising, and because if we're really present in this process, we're holding our attention, single pointedly for long periods of time, and it's powerful that the energy, whatever that energy wants to do in us it's doing its thing. So yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, thank you. Kamyar. Hi, Kamyar.
Hi. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Dan. Just as Paulo mentioned, I was a bit skeptical, and because I had not done it through through Zoom, but it was amazing, and you see what people are going through, and the benefit that I got from it was enormous as well. I attended the retreat as much as I could, but it was fantastic. What I experienced was, in some cases, people were coming in with sort of, as you said, manufactured experiences, coming in with knowing what they're supposed to say. Yeah, I'm this and I'm that, and really scripted like responses that they had prepared. Okay, I'm gonna go get there, and um, then when you probe, I actually experienced this with one person. I felt multiple personalities are coming up, because there was this very sort of calm, collected person that started in the beginning, and then some of these manufactured answers came up, and then what I asked was, what I prompted, are you satisfied with that? Then all of a sudden, a totally different personality came out that, started using the F word. And I said, whoa, that was really amazing to experience. So I didn't know how to handle that anymore.
Yeah.
This is a completely different person. Said, okay, we leave it at that.
Yeah, thank you. That's yeah, it's fascinating, and I think I talked a little bit about yeah, like there are multiple personalities can be there if someone has a dissociated part of their personality where they pushed it into the unconscious, those parts can get activated, and quite a few. I had a lot of reports of similar things where people getting hugely triggered by the facilitators, and yeah, and it's interesting. We had it was almost perfect for some people. There's some facilitators who were very sort of nervous to give their first prompt, and then they gave out their first prompt, and then somebody just totally unleashed on them, like just totally slammed them, and they're like, "That's you're interrupting my process, and screw you," or whatever it is, and quite a few times that's happened, and like my sense of it is, like there are these dissociated parts, and I've seen people, in retreats where they've literally flipped into another character, another being. Even their eyes change. Literally their eyes will change completely. So it's almost like it looks like a possession or something like that, like it happening in
Yeah,
front of you.
exactly.
Yeah, it's like a real activation of this unconscious part. And so, and that's part of it is, I screen people for psychological illness, before the retreats, and for that reason, because if when those parts get activated, sometimes there's no capacity whatsoever for self-reflection or to witness the thoughts that are coming up. In which case, if that's happening, it's not productive to do self-inquiry. It's actually yeah, it's better to just get them to let it move through, calm down, and take a time out, and just let that move through. So that is exactly why, like things like bipolar disorder or schizophrenia, those types of things are extreme forms of that. But
Yeah.
I also witnessed someone who had a very strong ego, or unconscious activation as well. And it is, when it happens, I feel like everything that happens at these retreats is meant to happen. It's kind of a cliche,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
but it's for those people, there were a number of people who I think it surprised them, what happened, like that they were triggered to the point where they just there was this flip that happened, And so it can be a helpful, almost like a diagnosis of what's going on for them. And if we don't react or judge it, we're just there. It's just happening. We're just witnessing it, not evaluating it or anything.
Right.
It can be a great kind of diagnosis for them, or they'll, sometimes see that maybe there's something to look at here in the unconscious. So, yeah.
It was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Camilla. Yeah, Lisa. Hi, Lisa.
Hey Dan, hey everybody. Yeah, boy, I can really relate with some of the things that have been spoken about already. Yeah, I was a little timid about saying anything initially, and when I did, I got a kind of that, oh, you interrupted my process, and it was just a correction on the technique. They just were closing their eyes and off in that whole mind phenomenal thing, um, and I doubted myself for just a moment, but then I noticed their reaction was really a lot more than it felt necessary, and it was quite clear that it was just a reactive moment for the individual. But what it did help me to see was there may be better languaging when it comes to trying to offer suggestions. And that was one thing that I think we talked about briefly during the out briefing of the whole retreat, or something. Anyway, we talked about it for a few minutes. And so that's one thing that I like about having written out prompts, is that you can see a languaging that is really neutral, and kind of start by using those prompts a little bit until you can develop your best modality for dealing with it. So those I find helpful, and I'm appreciative of that information. I did want to talk a little bit about a little bit of a trap I fell in for myself. I attended probably 80% of the retreat. I didn't catch all the very early morning meditations, but I really enjoyed the retreat a lot. I went deep with the retreat, but I really went deep with the facilitation too. It was really a wonderful thing. And I had a fair amount of doubt before the retreat, and talked to Dan about it. And he said, yeah, well, see what happens. See how you feel after the retreat, which was really good advice. And maybe be careful not to do too much prompting, just see how it goes. And so anyway, that I took all that advice very seriously. And one thing I did want to tell was that on myself was I noticed the judgmental mind activated somewhat, because I was listening to people that I knew that I had facilitated come in and then ask Q&A. So there was a lot of ability to sort of see relational patterns and see what they're saying in Q&A, and then see what they would say in the dyad, and kind of, I guess, form opinions, which was very inappropriate to a certain point, but then at a certain level, there's some discernment there as well. So I'll just put that out there as one of the possible traps. And also, yeah, you just have to trust yourself. And that's how it ended up working out for me. It was a very good learning experience. I did want to tell just a little short story about one gal that I had seen in Q&A over and over and over again, and that I had facilitated a couple of times in dyads. And I was certain that she was very, very heavily mind identified. But at some point, a very simple and organic prompt came up. The last day of the last dyad, the last opportunity, and I gave an incredibly simple prompt, and boom, her whole face changed, and she's like, wow, actually, there's absolutely nothing wrong right now. And it was such a huge change. It was so beautiful. And so there was no idea, oh, she's awakened or anything like that. I thankfully didn't have any opinion about that at all. I'd gotten to the point where I had become opinionless, because I had seen a number of times how the opinion I might have carried was not valid. So anyway, all that to just say, fabulous. I'm so certain that this process is exactly what Charles Werner says, that it can be so effective. And I'm very, very, very grateful to be included. And since then, I made a couple of friends through this group, and we're doing dyads off, outside of this, and it's been wonderful. And I'm going to Sib's group, and we're reading through the book together. So like, I'm totally in. I love it, and I'm just real grateful for you, Dan, and for the opportunity, and thankful to everybody here. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's yeah, so that, when we hear people in the group process, we do get insights into, where the blocks are in that character. And for me, it's like, I feel like we're somehow using all of these faculties, so it's not, so I think we can take in that information without evaluating or judging it. It just is what it is, right? So we see, there's childhood trauma or whatever it is, somebody's working through, and we just, to me, all of this, the information and all of the stuff that we're taking in through our senses, through our intuition centers, the gut and the heart and the mind, they're all kind of working together. So, I think it's good to just take it all in and just really listen and really hear what's going on with that person, trying to understand them. And then that intuition, will come out of that. Then the more we feel them and feel their what's actually going on, then there's that, just that intuition to say the right thing. It just will come right at that moment. So yeah, so I think it's good to just allow it all, everyone,
Yes,
every level. Yeah, yeah.
you're so right.
Mhm.
And I noticed more recently, but also towards the end of the retreat, there was this very, very strong intention to I just want to know them. I do want to hear what they say. I do want to know them. And that seemed to carry a lot of ability to stay very neutral and just present. And then, like, yeah, like you said, the word, if words are going to be spoken, they come from a place that's, yeah, you don't know. They're there and they're happening, and you hear your voice speaking, and there you go. It's
Yeah,
really sweet.
yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Um, Lila just poked her head in, and she just let me know she can't get into the meeting, so I'm gonna get her set up. I'll just be like 2 minutes. Maybe we can just take a quick washroom break here for 2 minutes. Okay, sorry about that. We're back, and Lilith should be joining here shortly, hopefully. So yeah, why don't we go to Zoo? You there, Zoo? Or maybe I'll just wait another minute here. Okay. You there, Zoo? Or maybe I'll go to Janine for now.
Hello.
Hi, Janine.
Hi. First of all, I'd like to express such gratitude for being part of this beautiful process. I think the most delightful the experience in facilitating was when it was like play, or like painting a painting or writing a poem. You know, there's no like figuring out it's just like I guess it's like flow and light and play, and that was very enjoyable, but it wasn't always that way. Sometimes I felt a little tired, and so it got more serious and I was questioning, well, what am I doing? And you know, the conditioned mind was engaging. So I mean, I can't say that that's a fun part and my preference is the play, but you know, I value all of it as being important and noteworthy. And so it's good to just watch everything. And I'm very grateful to be able to be here and do that. And thank you so much.
Thanks, Janine. Yeah, I find the you know, in my own process with all of this, I find you know, there are times where it's like you're in the flow, and it is just playful, and if you can sort of tap into that playfulness with others as well, it just there's this beautiful sort of exchange that happens, and yeah, some people it's easier to do that with some people, and then with other times we're just in a different state or whatever as well, and just being okay with that. You know, if we have no preference towards it, then it's like, yeah, it's just happening, and sometimes, you know, I've had times where it's like I've felt that playfulness, and then I try and be playful, but then it's my mind trying to be playful, you know, and then it comes across as sort of contrived or something, and it's not received. So there's all these things we see, and the whole mess of the mind that we can get caught in. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Thank you. Hmm. Zoo, are you your technical problem is fixed?
I'm here.
Yeah.
It's good. Can you hear
Awesome.
me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, I have a couple of shares and a question. So, it was really interesting to observe my own reactions of how I doubted myself. I was too shy to speak up and give pointers, and feeling really bad when somebody was resistant to the pointers, and evaluations of this guy is too much in his head, and you know, all those things. And it was really revealing of my own stuff coming up. But as it progressed, there was more silence of the mind, and there was more confidence, and it was like getting more and more subtle with the the promptings, and also watching the whole evolution of the group during the week. And it was like entering into like the subtleties of a mandala. It was like really beautiful to watch. And sometimes I felt like a peeping Tom, like this is getting really intimate, how people were being completely transparent and authentic in their sharings. And there was this shyness of like, I shouldn't be here watching this. So it was really interesting to watch that. And I really appreciated Teyama being there when I got out of the breakout rooms and just kind of sharing with her my frustrations and fears and self-doubt, and she was really helpful in I don't know, supporting me, I guess.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
And yeah, and the question is, can we have a shortcut of telling people not to use you, or that it happens eventually, but can we just say, can you not use you or I, just
Mhm.
to avoid all of the mental stuff?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and that's one that I've asked for many years, and where I've ended up with that is sort of this middle way where I'm not we're not absolutely telling people to not use it, but we're getting them to really examine the use of it as well, the use of the words like I and me and mine. We want to because what I realized is if we just say don't use it, then sometimes that will actually shut down the clearing process. If we because sometimes when someone does the inquiry, you know, they intend to directly experience who they are. What comes up, the language around it and the expression of it will be tied up in words like I. You know, it's like my childhood or my trauma or whatever it is that's coming up. So that needs to be expressed sometimes. Sometimes they need to fully feel that and experience that, and it's almost like they're identifying with it in that moment, but there's a clearing happening with that. So if we just shut it down right away, that clearing might not happen. Um, and so I try to find a balance with that. I don't you know, and usually at the beginning of the retreat, I'll let people go with their stories and their use of the I and me and mine, um, and let that go. And then at a certain point, then it's like when the mind has sort of been more cleared and they're more settled. They're maybe they're hanging out as the witness in that, you know, no man's land. That's when we want to catch anything like that. We want to really question, and it's in that space where it becomes more productive. Yeah.
Okay, so all the stages of the process is important. There's no
Yeah, yeah,
shortcut.
just where people are in that process. Yeah. Yeah, so that clearing process is you know, I did that at one point. I actually I just you know, made a rule like no using I or me or mine. And I realized very quickly reversed it at the retreat. I actually realized it was shutting down the clearing process, and it wasn't correct to do that. So I think, you know, it's really just questioning those, you know, what does that I refer to, rather than disallowing it completely. You know, it's just pointing at it, you know, or investigating it. Mhm.
Okay, cool. And one more share is, I don't know if you guys noticed it, but I find that my life has become a dyad. Like this dyad training is like training an inner posture, an inner way of being, which is like pouring out into all aspects of my life. In my relationship, there's like more of witnessing and less of reactivity, and more clearing. Each moment is an opportunity for clearing. It's just so magical.
That's awesome. Yeah, it for me, it literally like this retreat was a perfect example for me personally because the retreat itself, it was like I was sort of being who I am, you know, in the retreat. I felt like it was like one of the retreats where I would say like there was less of the character, you know, and more of just life moving through. So when we sort of embody or when we're being ourselves, then sometimes, you know, all the stuff that hasn't been resolved in the unconscious comes up after that. So after this retreat, anything that wasn't anything that needed to be looked at in the Dan character really made itself known, like almost immediately after this retreat. So there was some like health. I got sick actually. The body got sick, and you know, all kinds of things that, you know, needed to be addressed in and seen in the unconscious came up. So you know, my dealing with accountants and, you know, everything in the matrix that was sort of in the shadows. So yeah, so life is a dyad, totally. And if we, you know, the more awake we are, the more will come up to be purified, and it's this feedback mechanism that just keeps going. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such beautiful medicine to, like, if I can describe it, like, if life and myself, the character is like a hand. Before I was just operating from the tips of the hand, and then with the diet, I start to like retract back to like the whole hand, and now it's like sliding in and out. It's like the tip of the fingers and then the whole hand, and it's like this awareness of there's a character and it's okay. Whereas before it was like, no, the character is wrong and she can't do anything right. It's like the character is okay, whatever she's doing, but there's the rest of the hand that's guiding the character. And even when the character is doing something wrong, it's part of the perfection and part of evolution.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like way more acceptance, self acceptance, and just seeing the whole picture and seeing how awareness is in the infinite, and then it becomes finite and it goes back to infinite, and it's just like going back and forth, and it's not fixated on the character.
Mm. Beautiful.
And that's where the freedom is. It's just it's free,
Mm-hmm.
and it's watching the movie and it's enjoying the whole ride.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah, it's, I think seeing that mechanism and how it works is so powerful in our life. And yeah, when we see that life is a dyad ongoing, you know, we have these beautiful direct experiences, and then that opens up everything to allow more to be seen and purified, and that purification then brings another, you know, a more direct experience, and it's like this cycle. And if we have no preference of where we are on that cycle, we just know that's how it works, then that's freedom. Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you so much for
Hmm. Yeah, thanks, Sue. Joy. Hi, Joy.
Hi, Dan. Thank you so much for the opportunity for facilitating. It's been an amazing growing process, and it's really deepened my practice, and can't say enough about how grateful I am for that opportunity. So I'm going to share based on the same kind of thing we were just talking about uncovering some of the mechanisms of the structure of the mind. So I would, the share is about the experience of the exercise. So at the beginning of the retreat, it was the components of the exercise. I have a job. I'm looking for technique. I'm here to help correct technique. So it was very like structured. And there was a trigger during the retreat, just the response of, you know, some things that were going on, and the dyad really triggered me. And it's like, oh, I'm doing this. I'm not, you know, oh, I screwed up and I shouldn't have said anything. No, you did say the right thing. Just kind of like this rat-a-tat going on inside the mind, questioning itself. And it was kind of like that build up this pressure because I just felt terrible. I went to bed. I couldn't sleep. I'm like, you know, I'm going to disappoint Dan. He's never going to ask me to do this again. Just this is, you know, and it built up this pressure to the point where it was just a dropping in of presence, just a huge spaciousness. That is all I have to do. There isn't something that I need to do. So the next dyad started to play itself out in that space. And there was an amazing dynamic that occurred during one of those dyads. And it was just mind being mind. And then there was a prompt and like this self-correction, and then mind being mind, and another prompt. And it just landed in that same space, in that spaciousness. It's like the whole dyad just landed
Yeah.
in stillness.
Yeah.
Afterwards, I'm like, oh my gosh, what just happened? How did I do that? And then I saw it. I just saw that little sneaky aspect of mind claiming
Yeah.
ownership
Yeah.
for the for it. So it was as if the exercise navigated itself,
Mhm.
the vessel. It just, the right thing came out at the right time. I was like, how did I know to say that? Oh my gosh, how did that happen? But I didn't say that.
Yeah.
And to a degree, I can say I didn't say that. That the technique came alive and it moved through. So it was such an incredible experience to be the technique. And then there was this, there is it, the technique is not a technique. It's like self playing with self,
Mhm.
self playing with self. And there isn't someone, another, over there on the screen. And it just all came in, and just that recognition, like that realization, and shining light on that kind of sneaky part of the mind. And then being able to juxtapose between the beginning of the retreat and the how am I doing this, and how it was very compartmentalized compared to the dynamic of the movement of the exercise itself. And so there was that big piece that played itself out. And then I did the whole retreat. So in the meditations, I saw that same appropriation happening in the mind, where in the meditation, just no mind. Then as soon as there's movement of mind, mind would say, mind would say, I'm back, as if that thing back there that was completely still was the wrong thing, that this is the right thing. Now I'm back doing it correctly. And I could just see how sneaky it was. And it's been a blind spot,
Mm.
because that has kind of been going on in meditations for a while. It's like the second I'm back, it's no, that's not, that was mind appropriating itself because it was movement of mind.
Mhm.
And then it self corrects by being the teacher in the head saying, okay, now we got to do this to get back where we were at. And so that was an incredible insight into a shadow that I didn't see at work. And so just having this opportunity to facilitate was it pushed me into kind of the conditions for that to fall away, or at least have the to see. And then from there, it just is. It's just there. But now I can see it for what it is.
Mm. Beautiful. Wow. A lot of insights there. Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I love when like that, when you said about the mind, like the mind comes back and it's like, how did I do that, And that's the delusion of the mind. Yeah, that's it. It's like the mind somehow the mind is involved, but there's no I doing it. There's no, thinker thinking it, even though obviously thoughts are arising because there's words coming out of the mouth, there's interactions happening, so things are happening, but yet there's no thinker or doer in that space. And I loved how you just said, you know, it's like you're becoming the process, you know, it's like life is just dyading somehow, or, you know,
Yeah.
just playing with ourselves, and that's it. Yeah, that feeling of, you know, sometimes it's like we have to see all these parts of the mind, you know, to make them conscious so that they'll eventually loosen their grip and give way.
Yeah.
And it is excruciating sometimes, you know, at the beginning. It's like, you know, all this stuff coming up, the mind's in a battle with itself, and then at a certain point it's like, oh yeah, again, I'm not the mind, you know. But it's like sometimes a clearing that happens, you know. If I haven't done a lot of meditation, or, you know, the mind still, it's an ongoing thing. The mind is like, you know, there's no end to it. It's the mind is like maintaining a garden, and it always, if you just leave it, the weeds are going to come, and it'll need to be cleared. So to me, there's no end to that process, and it just is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Joy. Yeah, that's
Thanks.
amazing. Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah, Kamiar, do you have
It was, again, being able to see the thoughts, just become an observer of the thoughts has been an experience, an amazing experience for me. And having watched your films over and over, a lot of it becomes clearer as we move forward, and as the thoughts become clear. One thing that I wanted to share actually was one of the points that you made in one of your films was that it's like the ripples on the pond, and you're trying to clear, and the thoughts being the ripples on the pond, and you're trying to smooth that out with your hands. And that's, I experienced that yes, it is a thought, and I'm trying to actually fight that thought. So how worse it gets, and how just let it go. And it's just an amazing play. And as you mentioned, it's constantly a dyad. So I'm grateful. I truly am. This has been such a growth experience, and things coming together. I love it. Thank you.
Thanks, Kamiar. Yeah, it's, you know, it's such a huge thing when people in these dyads, they realize what you just said, where there's a point where, you know, we get the sense that we want to smooth out the pond, and we want to, you know, it's like I have to come to stillness. But when we really understand what the ego is, what the I thought is, you know, all it is resistance to what is. So if there's any resistance, even to the thoughts themselves, then there's this sense of I entangled with it. So it literally, there's nothing to do other than recognize that resistance, because the resistance is already a doing. The doing is already happening in the depth of the mind. So there's nothing to do other than, you know, let the pond become still, and we do that by seeing how we're stirring the pond. You know, we're already stirring the pond. It's already in motion. And then when we see, it's like, oh, I'm doing that. I'm stirring the pond. Then it's like, okay,
I'm messing it up.
yeah, like it, and then it's like, okay, I can actually let that go, stop that, you know,
Yeah.
and you know, see that unconscious part of the mind that was in motion, and then we can let it go. Yeah, thank you. Mm. Yeah, I'd like to oh, Sheila. Hi, Sheila. You're muted there. Can I get you unmute? No, not working. Okay, okay. Yeah, so I'd just like to reach out to Lila for a second, if you're open to it. Yeah, we had a lot of conversations after this retreat. Excuse me. Um, Yeah, Lila has a lot of insights. You know, we often would debrief after retreats, and you know, talking about what unfolded and the participants, and you know, one of the things, well, actually, anything you want to share would be great. I'm not going to set up anything in particular, but if you, yeah, maybe, yeah, just want to talk about anything that you feel is relevant.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I told him it's the first 45 minutes. My apologies. It's nice to see you all. It's beautiful. Actually, I actually came in the right time when you guys were talking about how we use the me, my, and me, and is it useful, or should participants, you know, stay away from that? And I just like to say that so 2 years ago, we were still not telling participants not to use the I, me, and my, like completely, just omit it and so forth. And when Dan and I did the self-inquiry for me on a weekend, it was still that way. So I never used I, me, mine. And so because what I realized is that why it was helpful was because we know that the answer doesn't come from the mind. And this false sense of I arises in the mind. It arises in this dream. So it was really helpful for me to actually just to report what was arising and not make it personal, not say that it's arising to me. Because the mind thinks, so the mind thinks that I am, this is all happening to me, and I think I know who I am. The mind thinks it knows. And whatever would be arising, you know, prior to realizing our true nature, we truly believe that it's arising to this me, this little me, and everything's happening to me. And I think it really helped I'm speaking from experience, not using those words made everything less personal. So this is a thought is arising, a feeling is arising, frustrations arising, confusion is arising, but it is not arising to that false separate self, which at that point there was no knowing of what that is. That was the real self. So to me, it seemed like it was just kind of creating that last step for the mind. When the mind drops away, it didn't matter that I never once used me, my, and I. Because when the mind drops away, there is only the true sense of me. So to me, that was just maybe helpful of not making anything personal, and still, you know, the mind would believe that this is all me when it's not. So for me, that was, anyway, I like that when we didn't have the my, me, and my in the retreats. And I conveyed that to Dan. I said, because when we allow participants to say I, me, and my, because the mind believes it's this little me, this the only human being, basically, there is a lot of identification throughout the whole process. When we drop that away and we're just going to say what's arising, we kind of watching, we are the observer of all the states coming and going, all the thoughts coming and going, and not make it personal, even if we think it's, you know, it's us or whatever, but it's still not personal in a sense. So I don't know if this makes sense, but it really seemed like a great idea when you and I did the self-inquiry, and there was nothing I was missing, like nothing the I was missing. It was just a technique. So the technique said, do not use I, me, and my, just report what's arising. And it seemed like it was a great idea.
Mhm.
Yeah. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
I totally like there is something incredibly powerful about that, and we've witnessed it over and over, and this is why we now include this as a feature of the retreats, which so this is I think I mentioned it before. You know, this isn't the Charles Berner method. He doesn't get people to exclude those words. And so this is something that we've just sort of come to, and yeah, I agree. Like like when someone can really just report without personalizing it, that's optimal. But yet what we've found is sometimes some people, you know, it's like if they have, you know, really deep clearing or stuff that sometimes, you know, they can't help using I as the false I, or there's a clearing process that is yet to unfold. So it's so tricky. It's so tricky, but it is so powerful if we can eliminate those words and truly just then we're really in the witnessing position. You know, then we're just witnessing what's coming up within the mind and body without personalizing it and identifying with it.
yeah, I remember when we were doing it and and we didn't use the words, and then you'd prompt me something, and I'd be like, well, it feels like it's me, or I think it's me.
Mhm.
And of course it was the false sense of I, but it's like because the mind believes that all these things are arising to that false sense of I, which is part of the arising. That false sense of I is arising as a thought. So it was really interesting and sometimes funny, and it kind of lightened the air and so forth. So that was really good. Another thing Dan and I talked about is the actual the direct experience with our true nature is what we have noticed, or like in our retreats, you know, it's like how do you recognize if someone is having an awakening? And I don't know if you've talked about this because I missed 45 minutes,
We did
but
a little bit,
yeah,
but you have some important insights. Even if it's repeated, it's fine. Yeah.
yeah. So um, what's usually like a very clear giveaway is the humbling of the mind, because the humbling of the mind is bringing there's this stillness and this silence almost that's it's like there is this waking up, like oh, I'm actually waking up right now. So Dan and I, when we talk about this, there is always this truth, you know, the truth is in stillness. So when you're working with someone, when you're facilitating, there is this clearing of the mind is just slowly dropping away, and slowly dropping away, and there is this the room becomes clear, that there is this something that's just there's this stillness, and there is quiet, and there is humbleness, and it's like the self is waking up, and it's like being reborn and seeing the world for the first time, like you were very little and you fell asleep, and then you just open your eyes a second later. Not even that, because awakening happens outside of time. So there is this really awesome process of self-inquiry. The self is playing and playing the hide and seek and the edge of time and space, and then falls off the cliff, and it's outside of time. And then the story of Lila drops away completely. So that itself is like, because the mind has dropped away, there is this silence and space and just seeing. And that's one way of recognizing an awakening. It's usually, from my experience, is a very quiet, very still presence that's just is there. And it's not, sometimes there's no cry, there's no talking, there's nothing. It's just not, energy is open and it's just free. It's just the energy that what's been there always, but no mind. So we talked about it, right? Like, how do you recognize that? Number one is humbling of the mind. There is this dropping away the mind and just this person, not person, but the being, the one sitting, realizing for the first time that it's like being reborn. It's like seeing everything for the first time ever with clarity, and there is no question. That's another thing, right? We talked about that. The questioner falls away. There's no more question. It's just that clear knowing that I've never been that character. And it's like, then of course, there is this little lingering of the character sometimes, right? But definitely this humbling clarity, no questions, absolute knowing, this absolute knowing that I am me, and I've always been me, and I've never been the role I've played. And then of course, it seems like your whole life was a dream. And I can't speak for everyone. Everyone has a sort of different levels of awakening. We notice that, right? Like different levels can be really deep when you're like, I dreamt my whole life, which is a deeper, it's like, that was not me who lived that life. And then you realize that you just dreamt it all. So to get to that point with someone, when you're with someone and you see they are becoming more quiet and they're sitting in that space of like stillness and quiet, and yeah, maybe it's a no man's land, but that is amazing, because awakening happens exactly there where this person is appearing. So that's where awareness is everywhere, but that's like the focus. And then that stillness and quiet and tiredness, whatever it is kind of, I don't know, it's just preparing. It's like the space is being prepared for the person to be present with what is, in a sense. The person is not present. There is no person. It's that self that is actually always there, but now the mind is sort of like somewhere there. A lot of people report that when they have the awakening, that it seems like the mind is just idling somewhere. It's just somewhere, but it's not there. And it isn't. That false sense of I has dropped away. The story of Lila dropped away. Totally, like 100, it is nothing. And no, just clarity, just being with what is, no questions, just a deep understanding. And a shock, in a sense. To the mind, it's a shock that comes back, because the little me will come back. And thankfully, Dan was there for me, because the little me just wanted to come back and say, oh, I didn't think this was an awakening. I expected something else. The mind was like waiting for something. And then it's like, don't. And then again, there was this clarity. So we have to be working with that person for, I would say, 10 minutes, minimum, more, better, solidifying, knowing that that person actually did have an awakening and they do know that they are not the character they've been playing. That's a full on can show. That's when you are actually directly experiencing yourself with that person. That person and you are the same substance appearing as these but the identities are dropped, and you can clearly see that. So stay with the person. If that person is in that stillness and they totally have realized, they just woke up, spend time with them. Don't speak much. Spend time with them. Like Dan and I usually say, has this me always been there? Have you always been you? And there's a clear answer, right? Just because you're talking to the self, you don't talk to the mind anymore, ever, even before. Just talk to the self. It's like this affirmation, basically, that's just unfolding. Yeah. Were you ever that character, or what is the mind doing? If they say it's not there, it's nothing, it's quiet, that's a good indication that they're clear. There's just clarity, there's just aware presence. So these are, to me, they are important, because if we don't let that self just be without interruption and just truly just sitting with a reborn sense of life, then, and the mind comes back and starts chattering and we start talking with them too much, then okay, first of all, we want to make sure that the awakening is the real, that like self just woke up, because we don't want people to think they had an awakening. So that's why Dan and I spend time with someone, and stand there and just, like, okay, like, just know that they know. And you know what? I'll be honest, that little self is part of this whole beautiful unfolding of life, and come back, of course, and it's doing its thing, but you'll always know that you're not that character, that it's playing its thing. It's just happening, right? It's nothing personal anymore. You're the self. So anyway, humbleness, stillness, quiet space, spending time with that person, and speaking little. Just they speak. If they want to say something, you will know if they have experienced a Kensho or not. But if there are still questions, just watch what the question is, and then point out, who is asked, where is that question coming from, because that's the mind wants to come back. It's just part of life. That's what creates this whole dream.
Yeah.
And it is the self. So the self loves playing. The self will play that game of hide and seek again if it wants to. It's continuous. But you'll never know. You'll never forget that you're playing. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Wow. Yeah, I think one thing I want to highlight is when you were saying, that mind will come back, and sometimes, in participants there's a fear when the mind starts to come back. That is part of the mind coming back, is the fear, but they'll think, I'm losing it. Something's being lost, and I think a real important thing is when we allow the mind to come back. We can allow the thoughts to come and arise, allow everything to be as it is, but just know who you are, in that. For a lot of people, I think that's the final little thing that has to give way, is like, oh yeah, I can allow thoughts to come and allow it to be exactly as it is, and what does it have to do with me? I'm just here.
Yeah.
It's, the thoughts are coming, and yeah.
Yeah, it's that when we see this a lot, it's like, oh, I'm losing it, or we hear that question, oh, feels like I've already lost it, right? You can say, or if you know, so if it's happening right from you, it's no, you just come back, the little you. You can't lose who you are. You're already that aware presence. Just the little you is coming back. But that's just illusory. That is the game. Who you truly are is always. That's the only thing that's real. That's another way of saying it. The only thing that's real about you is you. It's impossible to lose it. That's the mind. That's the mind. That's just a thought coming through. This it's like it's illusory, but it seems real. But it's just a thought coming through. Oh, I'm losing it. I
Yeah.
don't feel like I'm awake anymore. Oh, of course. Well, the mind is never awake and never will be, and it's just this story. The only truth is who you are. The rest is imagination, a dream. So we can assure that person is like, you're still who you have always been, but your role, the beliefs and the little character is coming back, which is just it's like at night, what we dream, it's the same. It's like you're the dreamer, you're the dream, you're the dream character, you're the dream stuff, you're the dream feelings, you're the dream emotions, feel so real. And then you wake up and it's dropped. The whole dream is dropped. That's what a real Kensho is. The dream, you're the dreamer, the dream, and you wake up from the dream. So that's the only real thing is you. The rest is the beautiful manifestation of you, life. Yeah. All you.
Yeah. Yeah, and so nothing that's arising is ever a problem. And
Ever.
if it is a problem, that's the resistance that gives birth to the I thought again. So anything
Yeah.
that's coming up in the mind and body, it's fine as long, but if it's being resisted, then
Mhm.
there's suffering. Suffering starts with that resistance and that birth of the I thought again. So the at any point, it's the question is just who are you? Who are you?
Yeah. And now, don't forget, even the resistance is oneness resisting.
Hmm.
There's
So
nothing outside
yeah,
of this self. So even if resistance arising, it's okay.
yeah.
Confusion arising, it's okay.
So we don't
Even
resist.
for us in life, this is something to know. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's never personal because we just dream to be this illusory self. So it's never personal, never. And it's only just, it's such a game.
yeah,
Such a game.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you guys.
Hmm.
You guys is amazing. I was so amazing watching you guys facilitate and just listening. It was amazing. It was beautiful.
Yeah, it
You
was.
guys worked so hard and you showed up. You showed up, and it's a great work for all of us. Though it's so funny to say it because even self-inquiry is like the hide and seek game, and this whole thing is just a game. But let's play. Let's play. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, it was beautiful watching you guys, and Dan, you're like doing this, It's amazing. Well, actually, Dan is not doing it. It's just Oneness doing it. Oneness is playing facilitator training. I love it.
Mhm.
It's
Awesome.
perfect.
Yeah,
It's perfect.
Yeah. We,
Amazing. So
we actually put out a little survey for people after the retreat. You might have seen it, and we got back a lot of amazing feedback. And just asked about facilitation. That was one of the questions, and so many people said, this facilitator or that facilitator, just gave the right prompt at the right time, and they're so grateful. And that there was a definite theme there in the feedback that that having facilitation and the just the right interaction at the right moment was so valuable for people. So yeah, so thank you. And yeah, I'd like to go to Yana. Yeah.
Hi guys. I'm sorry I came in an hour late to the meeting, so I didn't hear everyone's comments, and I'll watch the recording, but wanted to kind of follow up on what Leela was saying about one thing that really helped me during my dyad retreat that Leela did to me. And I was noticing to the little person, and this is why um, I was having this like really beautiful experience of presence and love and just feeling all the qualities of the one. And she kind of came in, and I was in this like bubble of love, and she came in and she's like, well, is your true nature an experience? And it like boop, it just flew like my whole balloon of of what I was thinking was I was experiencing was that, and it wasn't. It was just another experience, which I've had many of in my throughout my life. And that's really, even though at the time, it was sort of like, hmm, it was really, that was actually the key for me to going to that next level, that shift that happened, which was, oh my God, this is not an experience, it's a permanent state. And so having said that, that was really powerful for me. But then during this retreat, I was noticing that one of the participants was having a similar experience, and I noticed my mind wanting to interfere with the experience and just to remind her that the experience is not it. And noticing that, I held back because I realized, no, this is just you now wanting to 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 yeah, to think that someone else needs exactly what you needed, but that's not the case necessarily. Sometimes people being in that experience, they're tasting the thing, and they need to go through that. Like that's a necessary part. And so just kind of listening to the moment, to what's needed right now. And I was able to really just kind of tune in on that. And it was good. It was good.
Wow, that's a huge insight. Yeah. Yeah, it is so tricky because you're right. Like sometimes people, it's like they are getting a taste of something, their heart is opening and their energy is coming online, and we want to allow that to happen. But at the same time, we know, if it is just an experience, it's just a temporary experience, and that's not really what's going to be valuable for them. If we truly want to, be a facilitator, we sometimes we can sacrifice that temporary experience for the truth, and it's tricky. Like there were instances at this retreat where, sometimes when people are opening that way, there's a beautiful sort of rapport happening between the two partners, and then a facilitator will come in and say, who's aware of that, or who, pointing towards the truth, and sometimes it will sort of burst a bubble, and sometimes even the witness will react and will be like, hey, we're having a moment here, and there's something unfolding, and so it is tricky to navigate that, to sort of allow the energy to flow and the experiences to flow, but at the same time, not hesitate to deliver that blow, that death blow to the like to really say the truth, and so there's a middle way with that for sure. Yeah, it's never.
Yeah, I was noticing my ego trying to like assert itself, and that's where it's even the positive experiences of the past are not necessarily what's needed now. Now it's being attuned to this exact moment, what's here, what's now, and I was happy that I was able to recognize that, and that particular situation worked out great, and
Mhm,
yeah, it was good.
thank you.
So
Yeah,
many, so
beautiful.
many great experiences. It was I had a few times where I felt like people were frustrated by the question or the pointing. Um, in particular, there was one that was really talking about her past, and really getting into the story of her spiritual experiences. It was like having a conversation, and I just asked her if she could just experience her true nature directly right now. And she just kind of got angry that I kind of cut her off, and she just
Yeah,
quieted down. And yeah,
yeah,
I felt like I was one of those nuns with the stick that comes out and just goes whoop.
yeah. Yeah, we talked a little bit earlier in the meeting a little bit about yeah, there were people who were flat out triggered, like actually swearing at the facilitator, and like full on, almost like a dissociation happening, or like a real triggering. So yeah, it's amazing what can happen with that. And what we talked a little bit about how even that, if we don't react or evaluate that, we just allow it to be as it is, then it can, you can really be a mirror for someone, and they can see that reaction, and see what's in play in their own unconscious. Yeah. Mm.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Yana. Yeah, Dominic.
This is really just a practical question, but about going in and out of the breakout rooms.
Mhm.
So, I was sort of noticing that we had approximately 25 facilitators, but 100 participants, which means there were like 50 rooms and only 25 facilitators. So what I tried to do was, try and every time we went into a room to not go into the same, try to be with different people than I'd been with before.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was very unclear about whether it was okay to leave a room during a dyad to go to a different room, and maybe it was my sort of British politeness or something that I felt like it would be rude to leave,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
Although sometimes I did when there was a swap over of the roles, then I would use that as an opportunity to leave to go somewhere else. But I just wasn't sure what your guidance is on that.
yeah, so yeah, that's a great question. I think, like for me, at the beginning of the retreat, it's sort of a little bit different as we go deeper into it. So at the beginning, I usually just jump in a room. If people are generally getting the technique, then I'll jump out of it, and then go to the next one, make sure they're getting the technique, and just keep jumping around. And usually at the beginning, there's not a lot of need for prompting, so it's quicker. And then as we go deeper, sometimes I'll just sit and kind of attune to what's happening in the space, and if they're just sort of processing and doing the technique, but there's not a lot of opening for prompting or anything, then I'll just leave, and go to the next one. So yeah, it's not rude, and ideally, if like eventually, I really want to have. We're working on the I Am app, which Sahara's here actually. She's working on it, and it's, you know, that will, like right now with Zoom, you know, we see these little boxes appearing and disappearing, but with that app, it's going to be designed specifically for dyads, so it'll be much more unobtrusive, or you know, people won't be even really noticing when a facilitator is present. There'll be more, you know, it'll be more subtle, I guess. So that's a technical thing, I think, that will hopefully come from that. Mhm.
Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah, thanks, Dominic. Yeah, so yeah, I think the only thing I'm going to mention, this came up for a few people who were exploring the Charles Berner world and exploring the Lawrence Noyes material and checking out different dyads with different facilitators. So so one of the things, so we've been working with Tell Me Who You Are, and when we start to explore the Charles Berner world, we come upon these different prompts. So so at an enlightenment intensive, you know, usually when someone gets who they are, you know, they get Tell Me Who You Are, they awaken to their true nature, then after they're sort of stabilized in that, then they will, a facilitator will move people on to Tell Me What You Are. And I haven't really done much of that with the online retreat. I didn't do it at all. Sometimes I'll do it in the physical retreats. And Tell Me What You Are is it really I use it really only when someone is really stabilized. They're no longer, they're at a point where they're no longer seeking with the mind. They're no longer looking for who they are. So they're clear. There's a clarity, and you know, in the Charles Berner world, that isn't always the case at those retreats. Sometimes, like, someone will get a glimpse and then they'll move them on to Tell Me What You Are. And I feel like that stabilizing and grounding is, you know, like Lila was saying, it's like our, you know, our responsibility to be sure that they've got it, you know. And so Tell Me What You Are leads to an infinite number of direct experiences. So who we are is, you know, if I inquire into who I am, it's always just me. It's the one, right? So but Tell Me What You Are will lead into these sort of Savakalpa Samadhi experiences. So we can realize that what we are is everything. You know, we can, whatever is arising is what we are as well, and we can be in direct experience with what is arising. So so it's a way to open to more and more direct experience. So what you are, you know, takes you into life more. So you know, finding out who you are is like liberation. You know, it's, you're free from the character, you're free from suffering. But what you are is the arising of life itself. It's the engagement with life itself. So this is something down the road. You know, for I'd love to do a retreat sometime on what you are as well, just to go into that. And there are different prompts that are used in the Charles Berner world as well. So you know, Tell Me What Another Is, which so it's interesting. Like Charles, towards the end of his life, he really sort of he explored a lot of different things, and he really brought it back to who you are and what you are as the two main ones. So tell me what another is, tell me what life is. These are also sort of different flavors of direct experience that we can experience. So when we explore Tell Me What Another Is, we can have a direct experience as another. you know, as like the whole self, when the self and other drops away, you know, a direct samadhi experience with your partner in that, or tell me what life is. We can have you know, a direct experience of life itself, and and sometimes it's interesting because sometimes people, when they have you know, these direct experiences or savikalpa samadhi experiences, they might be actually working with the who imperative, but then they have a direct experience of, you know, something that is arising, you know, that with their energy, like an energy merging, so they can, or they can have an experience of life or love or experiencing that they are their partner. So these things, you know, they're cross-pollinating sort of. You can start out with who, but then have a direct experience of what, and vice versa as well. So so all of these, you know, these different imperatives are beautiful ways to sort of explore and excavate and deepen deepen the you know, the realization of who and what we are. So so that's something that's going to be sort of explored in the future at future retreats. I might introduce some of that, and yeah, and Janine, did you have a question there?
Yeah, actually, a technical question arose. In one of the rooms, it was mentioned that when I would speak, they lost eye contact with their partner. And in my case, I didn't have, I just had a black screen, and that they were troubled by that. And I was wondering, is this something that typically happens, you know, because of Zoom? Is what is going on when the facilitator speaks? They no longer have eye contact with their partner? Is that?
Yeah, so there's different technical ways of dealing with that. So they can, if they want their partner to be there continuously, you can pin your partner. So if you pin or I think what's the other one? Yeah, like you hide self view and then pin your partner, and then they'll stay there continuously, even if the facilitator is speaking. Or the other thing is, sometimes people don't realize all they have to do is double click on the little box of their partner, and they'll always get their partner back as well. But sometimes if they're in an iPad or in a phone, then that little box will just disappear, and they won't see that they're able to do that. So yeah. Where did Janine go? She just disappeared.
No, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Okay. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah, so those are little, yeah, there's a lot of little techie things like that you know, ideally I'm really looking forward to doing a retreat with an app that is specifically designed for the dyads, because those are things that are not optimal, and if people aren't tech savvy, you know, finding out how to pin their partner and all that is a little bit cumbersome. So it'll be neat to, yeah, see what we can come up with that. So yeah, great. Well, yeah, I think we'll wrap it up here, and yeah, thanks everyone. It was great. I'm recording this, so I'll share the link with the whole group, and maybe make a little note summary like we usually do as well. And yeah, once again, thank you so much for all your participation, and you know, the results of this retreat. Like a lot of people have said they were amazed by, you know, doing this online actually works. You know, it actually brings about awakenings, and the feedback that we got. Maybe I'll share some of the feedback that we got through our online form as well. But it's really beautiful we've been hearing from participants for the last couple of weeks after the retreat, and yeah, I feel like you know, what's happening here, we're onto something. The online thing, it's allowing for, you know, it's a scalable technology that's allowing awakening to actually proliferate in a very unique way. So I think it's exciting, and yeah, thanks for being part of the ground zero guinea pigs for all of it. It's awesome. And
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. I don't think anybody would say for a second that it wasn't great for them as much as it was offering that service. So particularly, I'm so grateful. Thank you so much, both of you.
yeah, thank you. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, take care. Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. Wonderful.
Thank you. Love you all.